You're watching The New Stack Makers, a podcast for people who develop, deploy, and manage at-scale software. For more information and articles about at-scale technologies, please visit thenewstack.io. Now enjoy the show.
UST is a global digital transformation solutions provider with offices in over 30 countries and more than 30,000 employees. Our team of technology professionals provides advanced digital transformation services, products, and platforms to enterprises worldwide. Learn more at ust.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the New Stack Makers. I'm your host, Heather Joslin, features editor of the New Stack. And in this episode, we're going to talk about FinOps. What is it? Why are you hearing so much about it these days? And how can you implement it in your organization? Joining me for this conversation will be Uma Daniel, product manager at UST. Hi, Uma.
Hi, Heather. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Uma, can you tell us a little bit about UST and what it does?
So UST is actually a digital transformation company, which has headquarters in California. We help Fortune 500 companies, maybe the largest Fortune 500 companies in the world, in their digital transformation journey. We actually support a lot of verticals, but I would say the big ones are healthcare, retail, telecom, manufacturing, financial services and asset management, automotive, among others. We also have a couple of platforms which support our clients in various areas like security, data, cloud transformation, etc. But I think what makes UST really unique is its unique business culture, because it has this culture which is based on humanity, humility, and integrity. We even have an office of values, and all that they do is they try to promote this culture among the people. And that really makes a difference. And I felt it myself when I joined UST.
Before we get started, I just want to thank UST for sponsoring today's conversation. And let's just jump in. First of all, a lot of us have heard the term FinOps. Just to give our readers, make sure we're all starting on the same page. What is FinOps and why is it emerging as a hot topic right now?
So FinOps actually is a cultural process which tries to leverage the cloud to make more money, actually. But the fact is that a lot of people think that cloud FinOps is only concerned with cloud cost management or cloud cost control, but that's not the case. The real objective is to make sure we make more money using the cloud. Okay, and it's also a cultural change which actually connects IT, business, finance, procurement, etc. So everybody needs to be onboarded to this idea of a FinOps cultural shift mindset.
And it's interesting, and also I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that, what happened was that what we've seen is that people were slowly making that journey to the cloud. We were seeing a lot of interest before COVID, and it was sort of like a slower shift. And then suddenly when COVID hit and, we were all stuck at home, everybody realized that we needed to go digital, because UST was already digital. It was a very easy transformation for me. I remember how on March 10th, I took my laptop in 2020, went back home, and I was able to work without a glitch. But I know there were several companies who could not do that. And, if you look at regulated industries like the financial industry, a lot of companies are slower. They take more time because they're more cautious before they make these kind of changes. But suddenly they realize they've got to make these changes. A lot of companies are moving to the cloud. But the issue is that without proper governance, what happens is that your cloud spend could actually get out of control, and you may not be deriving the correct value, which you can, or it may not seem like that to you if you go in that direction. So I think suddenly there is this interest in FinOps.
And it does seem also with the economic conditions lately, it does seem like there are a lot of companies that are interested in getting more value out of their operations and getting more value out of their technology. And and it's interesting too. You point out that the cultural change, because we always hear every technology problem is a people problem in its core. It's or a challenge to be solved. When we talk about some of the, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Heather, what I was going to say is you're absolutely right, because there is a sudden, the economic condition, and with, we've got some parts of the world at war with each other, and there is some uncertainty. So that's another thing we've noticed, that, like we were initially, when COVID struck, there was suddenly a focus on the budget. People were concerned about the budget, but then people were willing to make that investment in cloud. But again, we're seeing that right now, people don't know what the future is. There's always these rumors about the recession. So we are seeing people being more cautious. Even the big companies, which were ready to spend like millions of dollars on the cloud or anything connected with that, have become more conscious. So there's definitely a change in the way people are spending money. And, people just want to be careful and cautious, I would say.
Yeah. We talked about some of the misconceptions about FinOps, that people think it's just about cost cutting. Are there other things that when you talk to customers, that they bring up that you feel are not, that fall under the umbrella of misconceptions?
So one thing is that, people, for whatever reason, think that this only has to do with cloud cost optimization and cloud spend. So that's really a big misconception, right? But keeping cloud cost under check is only one aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea that, business, IT, and engineering need to sit and talk together and see how they can, derive value out of the cloud, that is something that not everyone is aware of. Nobody is aware of the concept that we should be making money out of the cloud. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that I think is one big misconception. Another thing is that a lot of people think that cloud FinOps is something that only technical people or engineering people, or maybe only the finance team should do. That's another total misconception. Mm-hmm. It's a collaborative effort. Everybody needs to work on it together. So that's another one. And then there's also this concept that people think that only people who are already using the cloud should adopt FinOps, which I think is also wrong, because the right time to actually adopt it would be at the beginning of the journey, because once, ways are set and people have these practices or they get used to doing things in some ways, it's difficult to make that change or transition. So when you try to introduce FinOps into a company which already has set ways, I would say that's more challenging than trying to introduce that at the early stage.
Mm. What are some of the biggest or most common ways in which organizations consume too many cloud resources, or fail to make the most of their cloud resources?
One thing I can think of where people end up, spending a lot of money on cloud resources is, cloud storage and data transfer. So those are two things that can really impact your cloud bill. Like, when you transfer data and then you have a lot of storage, your cloud bills can really soar. So you really need to check and see whether you really need all that storage. Are you keeping things that you really don't need? Which brings us to, the fact that people also have a lot of idle resources or underutilized resources running in the cloud. And one problem is that, when it comes to cloud, it's not in front of you. You usually realize that you've got a huge bill when you get it at the end of the month, because it's kept somewhere in a safe place. Mm-hmm. And it's easy for people to lose that visibility. And then sometimes what happens is that, when you start development, you think, okay, you don't want to sacrifice the performance, or you're concerned if something will happen. So you tend to over provision. For example, instead of using a large, instead of using a medium virtual machine, you can end up having very large VMs, where actually a medium one would have been just fine. And another thing is like, you get all these orphan resources. So what happens is either you delete some things and then, you have things which are connected with these resources like snapshots or something. And these are running in the cloud, and that also adds to the cloud bill. So those are some of the things that, actually can increase your cost.
Do you find it's pretty common that organizations have things that they're storing in the cloud or that they're running in the cloud that they completely forgot about, or just
all the time?
All the time.
Yeah. And the bigger the enterprise, actually, a lot of the big companies have it, but half of that was because, a lot of the really big companies, they were willing to invest in cloud, and they want their developers or engineers to experiment. So they allowed them to, sort of play around with all this stuff. So, yeah.
Are there a lot of abandoned experiments or something?
Expensive experiments. Yeah.
So that's definitely a word to the wise. Check it. Look out for your abandoned expensive experiments that may be running up your bill. If let's say I'm a CIO or a CTO or even just a manager or team leader of some sort, and I want to get serious about implementing FinOps to guide our company's decisions about how we're using the cloud. How do we get started?
Well, I would think that the first thing you need to do is you need to have executive sponsorship, because without visible support from leadership, no change is possible. So if you want to bring in a FinOps culture, which is essentially a kind of change, you need somebody to stand by you and support you. And you should also bring in a team. So you could have a centralized team, maybe a FinOps Center of Excellence with members from all these teams. So you could have people from procurement, finance, engineering, business, and they should all sit together and come to a consensus about how they want to go about it. So it would all depend from company to company, because they would all have different goals in mind, right? Their goals would be different. And we should bring in some kind of governance structure and some policies. So there could be budgets, there could be forecasts in connection with these budgets. And another thing is that, you also should try to create some kind of awareness, because it's not just the responsibility of a few people. So everyone is responsible, and we should try to educate people on, what are the drivers for cost? What can you do to optimize cost and increase the visibility of cost? So what are your bills? How is it? How did you reach that place, etc.?
So putting together this sort of committee or center of excellence or team. Another hot topic right now is platform engineering. Can that have an impact on FinOps, and if so, how?
Yeah, of course. So actually, when you think about it, FinOps is, it's about people, it's about process, and it's also about tools. So all these things need to move together. And when you think about platform engineering, if you have got a really good platform, it can help you with the automation part. Because what I've seen is, like, even with some of our big customers, when they come to us with FinOps issues, initially the team is very excited and they're very happy to, actually manually go through all these things and do it. But they do it 1 month, they do it the second month, they do it the third month, and they're like, they can't keep on doing that, right? So at that point, if you've got some kind of automation in place, it's very helpful. So platforms or tools can be helpful. And most of the companies we work with, they either have their own tools or platforms, or we help them. We have our own platform and tools, or they may want some kind of reporting which is automated. So definitely platform engineering is a huge support, but you need all these things. You need the platform, you also need the people. It can't be one or the other.
What are some of the best practices you've seen in implementing FinOps?
One thing, and the most important thing, is teamwork or collaboration. So it's kind of difficult because, the way an engineering team thinks is very different from the way a business team thinks. And so it's kind of natural that all these teams are, they're sort of working in silos and they don't really talk to each other. It's kind of common.
Mhm.
But it's important that they learn to collaborate. So maybe you need to find out who in these groups are willing to adopt this change. And, some people are naturally better collaborators than the other.
Mhm.
So we just need to find out how we can work together as a team, get the right people. And it should always be a cross-functional team. So we need people from business. We should have people from engineering. We should have people from finance and also from procurement, because they all play a major role in this. We should have a common and unified vision. All these things will help. And then you should have a regular cadence with a governance body and also set some policies. So it could be generic as well, right? You could have some generic policies in place. So if you have a budget you have a budget for each project, then that also is a sort of guideline which helps people to keep their cloud spend under control, right?
How do you create trust? You mentioned that all the teams have different different culture, different view of each of the other teams, perhaps. How do you create trust among the engineers? That they're not just going to be subject to, bean counting.
I know. Yeah, you're right, Heather. That because change is difficult. As I mentioned earlier, it's very difficult, and it's just that we just get used to doing things a certain way. So the most important thing is to get the executive support and buy-in, and they need to support the team visibly. We should go out to all departments and levels and talk to them, understand what their concerns are. They would have genuine concerns. And then we need to see how we can all move forward. We should also sort of try to let everybody know what the problems are we're facing now, because there could be, the issues of budget overspend. And for example, if you go over budget and you finish your budget, then you may not have the resources to entertain or engage or start another project. So if you wanted to have a project which you thought was important, and then like 6 months in, you realize your budget is all over, then it can be a challenge. And sometimes people will have to say no, right?
Mhm.
So it's important that they understand what are the benefits. And we should also understand what challenges they are facing and what challenges they see, and then see how we can help them to solve these issues. And another thing is that, everybody talks in a different way, right? So the way that an engineer talks is very different from the way a finance person would talk, right? So we need to use simple language and try to make them understand that this will definitely benefit the individual teams and the organization as a whole. But it's like constant work, it's like anything else. It's a journey and, not a destination.
Certainly one way to show to engender trust is to share results. I mean, how would you recommend that organizations share the results of FinOps before, like either in terms of cost, in terms of optimizing resources and generating revenue?
So one way is you can definitely show how you've brought down the cloud cost, but that's only one thing. So you can show them that you've the before and after scenes of you had so many idle resources or underutilized resources. Now you don't have so many. You can also show them the profits you've made. So as I said earlier, FinOps is also about making money, right? So you can show them where you took that conscious decision to spend and how you're sort of deriving benefits from it today. So if you decide to spend in a certain project, on some sort of cloud project, and suddenly everybody's using it more and you're getting more revenue, that's something that you can showcase, right?
Let's talk a bit about the tooling. What I don't know if if you want to talk about open cost, the open source cost monitoring project, or any other FinOps tooling that you'd like to point to as being particularly useful?
Tooling is essential because you can't do everything on your own. And most companies would want some kind of tooling. Now, it could be a platform, or it could be a BI dashboard, to create reports. It can even be some kind of, automation, right? Which, like, for example, you could put in some automation to shut down some servers at a specific time of the day when it's not used, or something like that. So at the end of the day, we would need some kind of tools. And what we've noticed is most of our large customers, they already have some tools, but sometimes we help them, support them with tools or reporting or automation, depending on their needs. Open cost is something that you can use to understand the cost of container environments on Kubernetes. So UST also has, we've got a platform which sort of has a FinOps module. So we've got our own platform. We also have a lot of qualified and certified resources who can create, whether it's automation or reporting or whatever.
So if you want to talk, I don't know if there's more you want to say about how UST tackles FinOps with its customers. What is the approach when you go in to work with a new customer?
So we've got a lot of certified FinOps practitioners. What we would need to do, like even within UST, we've got a very good governance structure. So I'm part of the cloud team here. Even within our team, we've got a very good governance structure in place. So we've got people from the finance team. We've got people from we've got senior people in finance, directors, all come together every month, and we have discussions and review where we are. So what are the profits we're making? Where should we correct or rectify? So those are things that we do, and we make sure that we have people from all the streams who are relevant or important to have that conversation with, because they all have a say. And if you already have something in the cloud, we cannot remove that without understanding what it's being used for.
Is there anything more you want to add about how UST tackles FinOps with its customers?
Yes. So what we do is, like with customers, we've got a cloud advisory council here within UST, and we've got a business transformation team called Evolve, and they're also in charge of our cloud FinOps engagements. And some of the stuff is confidential. I cannot completely reveal what we do, but we sort of talk to the customers and understand what their challenges are, and we try to solve it. So like with one of our customers, we were able to save $1.5 million in a very short span of time. That's great. Because of that, they started to engage us more and give us more work in connection with FinOps. So it's a very large enterprise. So even if you start at one small place, you keep working at it, and it never gets completely solved. So I would say that you don't have a one size fits all, because from one enterprise to the other, everything is different. For example, to give you an example, if you take two retail customers, they're both in retail, they could be using different cloud providers. They could be using different services. and even, the kind of tools and the processes in that company, in these companies, would be totally different. So we can't have we need to be flexible, in other words. We can't have a fixed format.
Yeah.
We need to be flexible. We need to listen to them and then see what exactly their challenges are. Right? For example, one company could be on Google and another company could be on Azure. Right? And also, when it comes to the kind of project management tools they use or other services, there's so many companies out there giving different kinds of services. So they could be using any number of those. So we would need to find out how it works for each company, what they're doing, what are their processes, what are their goals. We need to have discussions with the various stakeholders, like the senior people from business and also the engineering teams. And then we all need to sit down together and understand what their goals are and then try to help them to achieve that. So we take it on a case-by-case basis and we see how we can optimize. And, UST has this goal, like it's like, they go for fewer customers, but they want to give good value to them and build lasting relationships. So some of the companies we have with us today are like they've been using our services for more than 20 years. So we try to build those kind of lasting relationships with them.
Okay. So, and takeaway being every organization is different. The tooling, the people, the processes, you have to, if you're going to implement FinOps, you have to look at all of that. And I think that wraps it up. We'd like to thank Daniel of UST for joining us today. Thank you, Uma.
Thank you so much, Heather, and everyone on the team. It was a really good experience for me.
Oh, thank you. And we're pleased to have you here. And we'd like to thank UST for sponsoring this conversation today. And we'd like to thank all of you for joining us. This has been Heather Joslin for the New Stack Makers. We'll see you next time.
If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on all the major social media platforms. You can always find us at thenewstack.io. We hope to see you soon.